Good morning. Welcome to Frank Talks. We are so happy that you are here. I think I'm more excited over the fact that this shows you are such an engaged citizen and wanting to really get to know the facts and information that's happening within our community. My name is Alina Bell, and I serve as the board chair for Franklin Tomorrow. I also serve on the school board with Franklin Special School District, so this is a very important topic to me. I am thrilled that we're able to host Frank Talks every single month because of the generosity of our community. First, I'd like to thank Williamson Medical Center for being our sustaining partner, and I see Nicole over here. Thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. And second, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor every month for being here, and that is Renaissance Bank. Right across the street is their building. Let's thank them for being our presenting sponsor. Now I'd like to introduce Nancy Conway for her to come for her segment, Did You Know? And it's going to take just a moment because she's going to get her prize. So.
Yeah, she's going to get her prize and get her question. I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director for Franklin Tomorrow, and we're really glad you're here this morning. And we'll introduce our panel in a minute, and there's plenty of coffee in the back if you want to get up and get that, get an additional coffee. But we'll bring Nancy up for her Did You Know question. Remember, raise your hand or so she can call on you to see if you're right or sometimes you're not right. How about that?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just asked Chief Faulkner if she'd be on the lookout for the person who raises their hand and answers the quiz question correctly first. So there's no confusion, no room for error, right, Chief? Okay. The Williamson County Public Health Department is located at 1324 West Main Street, Franklin. Prior to that location, where was it located in downtown Franklin? What did? Incorrect. That is correct. It was behind the historic courthouse on 3rd Avenue South, on the site where today many know it as the courthouse annex and everything. It is believed, but I have no formal verification of this, that the health department moved from 3rd Avenue South to West Main Street sometime approximately mid-1950s. So, Tom Lawrence, do you remember that? Okay. Thank you and congratulations.
She keeps us guessing, doesn't she? She certainly does. So again, I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director for Franklin Tomorrow, and thanks for being here on a different day than we normally do Frank Talks. We normally do Frank Talks on the second Monday of the month, but that's a holiday next week, and we wanted to have a Frank Talks on this important topic of opioid use and substance abuse in our community. But right now I want to invite Harrison Crabtree to come up and tell us why you have this. Harrison's with Renaissance Bank. He's Williamson County President. He's going to tell us why you have this in your chair and why that's important.
Yes, hi again. My name is Harrison Crabtree with Renaissance Bank across the street. And today we've got here Diane LeBlanc, where's Diane, and Tony Sharp, just with our bank. And we just hired Chris McCall and Nikki McBride. Y'all please stand up. They're from Capstar Bank, so we're glad to have them here today. But the reason why you have this is because Renaissance Bank became the jersey sponsor for the Nashville Soccer Club. So that's going to be big for our bank, big for Nashville, and also Franklin and the other communities. And so our name's going to be across the jerseys for the club. Any kind of offset clubs for the youth will also have Renaissance Bank on here. So we're we're glad to be a proud sponsor of the soccer club, and hope y'all can come to the stadium when that's complete. But you'll see our name across the state of Tennessee, and so we're proud to be the jersey sponsor for the Nashville Soccer Club. So thank you, Mindy.
Thank you so much. I also want to let you know that instead of our medical moment from Williamson Medical Center this morning, we've got Dr. Tafik Assad, who is going to participate in our panel. So it's a live medical moment, okay? It's not video today, so we're excited to have that. But I'm going to get out of the way and let this important panel discuss our topic today. And we're here at the Franklin Police Department, so not only as our host, but as someone who is very deeply concerned about substance abuse and use in our community and the impact it's having in the realm of mental health, I'm going to let Chief Deb Faulkner speak for a few minutes. I'm going to hand you the mic. So you don't have.
Thank you, Mindy, and thank you all for being here this morning. Welcome to the Franklin Police Department. I'd like to recognize that our mayor has joined us. Dr. Ken Moore is here, and I see Alderman Brandy Blanton. Are there any other aldermen that are here? Welcome, all of you. This is a difficult topic to talk about because it greatly impacts our young people, and I'm sure that's why the majority of you are here today, is you want to hear from this very distinguished panel. All of us have a different role that we play in this issue regarding vaping and substance abuse. And while I'm really not going to have any numbers or any professional scenarios to tell you about vaping, because that's all very new to all of us, and it's not against the law unless it's children that's purchasing some of these materials. But I do have some current numbers regarding substance abuse, which is something that we've tracked for many, many years throughout my career, particularly as it relates to overdoses. For the last 9 months, January to the end of September, the Franklin Police Department, realizing that we are just 42 square miles of this county, we have had 42 overdose calls. 6 of those occurred in September. In September, we had 49 drug investigations, 1 confirmed death. We had 15 drug arrests by our Vice and Narcotics Unit. Prescription drugs continues to be an issue, but also we're seeing marijuana, cocaine, and this one really bothers me, fentanyl, particularly as it could be laced with heroin, meth, and let me also mention that with fentanyl, we have to decontaminate anyone involved. In this case, a patrol officer made this arrest and had to be decontaminated. That's extremely serious. Now, this is not vaping, and it's not necessarily substance abuse, although sometimes it is. But I think I would be remiss if my message did not include a mental health issue. It may or may not be the topic, but to me these things sort of coincide. I receive a suicide report the first of every month. Now, that may seem odd to you, but it's a very troubling issue. Law enforcement is on the threshold of a mental health crisis in this country. The first 9 months of this year, the Franklin Police Department has 136 incidents of either suicide threat, attempt, or actual. And I know this is something that Mayor Moore is keeping up with as well as one of his health initiatives. Now, where this ties in with our young people and looking at the demographics of these numbers, they're not just numbers to me. There was a 9-year-old who threatened suicide. There was an 11-year-old who attempted suicide. So these are very troubling numbers, and certainly something that we as a police department keep up with, try to monitor, and try to follow through with our health professionals here in the county and the city. Now I'm going to turn it over to the health professionals and let them speak next. And I think you're up, Doctor, aren't you? I believe so. Okay, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Let's see if this works. Okay. So my name is Tafiq Assad. I'm a pulmonary and critical care physician at Williamson Medical Center. So I did my residency in internal medicine and then did a specialty in pulmonary medicine. So I deal with lung diseases on a daily basis. And as I said, I've worked at Williamson Medical Center for 2 years now. So I do have some slides. I will say I was just informed that there was some redundancy with my slide set and a future presenter, so I might fly through a lot of these, and I apologize for that. I just don't want to steal anyone else's thunder. So in my opinion, this is, I'm going to try to find the best way to position myself. Again, slides were courtesy of the health department, who are going to be talking about a lot of these same issues. In my opinion, this is a double-edged sword. So this is not, I want to be clear that there are two health epidemics, in my opinion, regarding vaping. One is the rising use amongst all people, but in particularly with younger people, particularly high school and middle school students. I think that is an epidemic in terms of nicotine addiction and potential future lung disease down the road. That's a long-term, bigger picture problem. There is a more pressing, immediate health epidemic, which I'm sure everybody in this room has heard about, the kind of clunkily titled vaping-associated pulmonary disease, essentially people who get severely ill from vaping. And we've seen a number of cases at Williamson Medical Center, probably amongst my partners and I, 10 or so. And I'll show you some statistics at the very end. So just quickly again, I'm going to skip a lot of these things about smoking rates, but I think it goes without saying, smoking rates have gone down in Tennessee in high school students and adults for many years now. And so that was a public health win in a lot of ways for the health department and other agencies, but unfortunately vaping has sort of become the new kid on the block, and I'm going to skip a lot of these, and I apologize for that. Just a brief kind of description on what vaping is for those who haven't experienced it directly. Vaping is probably the most commonly used expression to describe this now, but probably more broadly we call it electronic cigarette use or e-hookah use or vape pens or all of those acronyms to the left. It's a pretty simple process. It's essentially taking a liquid, adding heat to it. The liquid has nicotine all the time. It oftentimes has other drugs and chemicals and stuff that I'll describe in a second. And then you make an aerosol out of that heated liquid. And sort of the misnomer, as you'll hear myself and other people say, is it's not a benign vapor like the name kind of suggests. It's not just taking water and then breathing in liquefied or vaporized water particles. It's a lot more complicated than that. And so those are some pictures of some types of products. And I won't go, although the slides do, I'll try to skip over details on individual types of products. A lot of them look like cigarettes, some of them don't, and then the newer ones look even less cigarette-like and more electronic-y. And so I think this is a useful slide to say what is in this thing that you're liquefying or that you're vaporizing or whatever, aerosolizing. So it's not just water. There's probably a little bit of water in the mix, but to make the nicotine dissolve, most of these electronic cigarette solutions have oils and glycerol and chemicals that both make it more tasty and also less irritating in the back of the throat, and also allow the chemicals and drugs that are in these things to dissolve. And so when you breathe it out, and you may have seen some people breathe this out, it makes an impressive plume of aerosol. There's a lot of things in it. There's probably some residual nicotine, so a little bit more of the drug. Or if you're using THC-containing solutions, there may be some THC in the vapor. There are other particles and volatile compounds. Again, the oils that are being heated up become a gas, but then many of them become a liquid back when they cool. There are some chemicals that are known carcinogens. There's probably 80 or 100 different chemicals in this aerosol. There's some flavors, and some of you may have heard of diacetyl, which is colloquially known as popcorn lung. So there's a known condition in people who work in popcorn factories that one of the flavoring agents added, diacetyl, when inhaled in high quantities can lead to a pretty severe lung disease in people. And so that is one of the very common chemicals added to the vaping liquids. And so don't be fooled that it is a benign thing, which is why many public spaces, airplanes, I'm imagining public departments like the fire department and police department and city hall ban its use inside buildings because it is not benign. So again, this just drives me crazy, but this is something that the health department will talk more about. It is beyond obvious to me that there is a targeted campaign to children with flavors and additives that are supposed to, they say it's for anybody who wants a yummy, sweet delight, but I think the tobacco industry has a long history of targeting kids. I'll leave it at that. Okay, and I'll skip all of this, although this is a great slide set. Whoever made this did a great job. I'm going to skip it because I don't want to steal thunder. Rates are going up. Adults aren't really using it that much. I mean, they are some, but it's usually smokers or people trying to quit smoking. The bigger problem is kids who have never shown interest in smoking. This is their gateway into nicotine. And I will skip my Juul thing because other people will talk about it. It's not benign, but many similar chemicals, different formulation. It's a nicotine salt, not a liquid, so that means more nicotine per volume. And so it can get you a whole lot more nicotine, and this is sort of something that the maker of Juul has released. If you look at the yellow line cigarette and the pink line, which is the Juul, and there are many other kinds, Juul it's in its own category. This is a specific brand that gives you a high quantity of nicotine really fast, making it more addictive and dangerous. Okay, now let's talk about our statistics here in Williamson County and nationally in Williamson County. So some of this data is it's as recent as the Tennessee Health Department and as the CDC has released, but as of last check this morning, there have been just over 1,000 cases nationally of something that we're calling vaping-associated pulmonary illness, which is a sudden and acute lung disease associated with vaping. And so there have been 18 deaths nationally, luckily none in Tennessee. As of, I think, this past Thursday, there have been 39 reported cases in Tennessee. By coincidence or I don't know what, I've seen a lot of the cases. I've reported 7 to the health department, and I know that there are more cases in Tennessee. I'm confident in that, and I'm sure there's a lot of underreporting. Also, a number of patients probably don't come forward if they know enough about it and don't feel terribly ill enough. I'm sure a lot of people are suspicious that they have it but are afraid of consequences, about getting in trouble, about their parents finding out, about getting arrested, etc. And so I bet people are sitting home with symptoms that are on the milder end of the spectrum. So the median age of illness is 23. That's nationally. I don't think we have enough data points in Tennessee to talk about I don't know if it means as much as the national data. But this is startling to me nationally as well. Over a third of cases are below the age of 20, and so most of those are teenagers. There's some 20-year-olds thrown in that mix, but 16% of cases are below 18. And I don't deal with pediatrics, and so I'm not seeing that front of the illness. I see a lot of young adults, but still teenagers nonetheless. Okay, so the symptoms, for those who are curious, it is actually surprisingly not just a lung illness. And so I was struck by the fact that almost every case that I've seen, if not every case that I've seen, was the preceding illness was that of a gastrointestinal discomfort. And so nausea and vomiting is what has actually preceded almost all of my cases, which is what confused people, and they think they just have a stomach bug or they think maybe they have the flu. They don't think they've got something going on in their lungs yet. And then the lung complaints follow usually, and it's normally shortness of breath, cough, chest pain are also pretty common. Every case I've had has had really high fevers. Fevers to the point that they're taking Tylenol and ibuprofen or NSAIDs on a regular basis. And usually those work, but it takes a while to get those fevers under control. Again, people think they have the flu or some other illness, infectious illness. And then the job of the healthcare providers to rule out common things like the flu, because this could in many ways present like the flu. And every x-ray and CAT scan that I've seen has been pretty impressive. And so what all of these patients have is pneumonia, stuff in their lungs involving every single lobe of their lungs. So we have 3 lobes per lung. And this is not just a little small area that's affected. Both lungs almost entirely are affected. And so not every case has been hospitalized, but many of them require it. The treatment is really just stop doing the thing that's causing the damage. And so many patients that have come to me have stopped vaping because they say it hurts every time they vape, and they suspect the vaping is the problem. So in the back of their minds, they've kind of known that's what's to blame. We usually just give them supportive care, which means if they're nauseous, we give them nausea meds. If they're needing oxygen, we give them oxygen. And some of the cases, like I said, I've taken care of in the clinic. Many of them have been hospitalized, and one of the cases I cared for was on a ventilator, requiring mechanical ventilation, deathly ill, but luckily survived. Steroids have proven helpful, which suggests that this is an inflammatory process in the lung. So steroids are anti-inflammatories. And every case that I've seen that was sick enough got steroids, and usually within a few days turned a major corner and got better. And so lastly, what causes it, and this is really just speculative, we don't know. We suspect that there's a contaminant in some of the chemicals that are being used. We have seen cases where people just use purchase controlled nicotine packages like the Juul. Most of the cases that I've cared for and reported nationally have also used marijuana products or THC-containing products. And so there is likely, and this is me speculating, there's likely something in the supply line in which something is newly being added that is causing lung injury. Again, many of the things that are being inhaled are liquids and oils, and then they get heated with a very high temperature heating element in the electronic cigarette, and it becomes a aerosol. But the problem is that element is hot, and by the time it ends up in your lungs, our lungs are a good bit cooler, and a lot of those liquids, I suspect, are becoming a liquid again. And when they're depositing on your lungs, your very fragile lungs, it causes a lot of irritation and inflammation and cell death, and hence their illness. Vitamin E has been suspected as a potential culprit, but everything I've read has suggested that's still premature. So that's kind of all I got, and I'm happy to take questions. I don't know what the flow is. What's that? Questions at the end. Okay, that's all I got for now.
Thank you. That was very great and informative information. So my name is Lindsay Wilhelm, and I am a health educator with the Williamson County Health Department. So being a health educator means that I get to actively be out in the community and discuss important topics like the ones that we're discussing today. Vaping and juuling was actually indicated as a primary focus area in our community health improvement plan here for Williamson County. And I want to give you guys some statistics from a 2018-19 Williamson County, Tennessee Together student survey. So this survey is given by the Williamson County Anti-Drug Coalition. 8 random schools are selected to participate, and they consist of 8th, 10th, and 12th graders. So about 14 was the average age of initiation for e-cigarette use amongst these Williamson County students. Only about 9.7% of these students indicated that tobacco products were a very difficult substance to access. And only 44.9% of Williamson County students associated e-cigs and tobacco use being a great risk. So all that to say is it's easy for them to get, and they don't really see that big of a health risk to themselves to access it. I do want to say that Brittany and I, because Brittany is also one of the other health educators for Williamson County, whenever we're out doing these presentations in the community, we're able to really talk one-on-one with some of these kids, and we do a kind of like a verbal survey amongst them, and we say, do you know someone who is, 16 and younger who uses Juul or e-cigarettes? And we're seeing on average, the youngest that we get to is about 8 to 10 years old. And they are smoking on average 6 to 8 Juul pods a day. So that is equivalent to 6 to 8 packs of cigarettes. So, huge problem. Between this month and next, Brittany and I will be speaking about this topic, so juuling and vaping, to 15 different schools and school-based organizations here in Williamson County. So that's Williamson County schools and Franklin Special School District schools. During these presentations, we talk about the effects of the early onset use for youth who use these nicotine devices, and we show the marketing tactics that are used to target them to become lifelong customers. So kind of like what you saw kind of a preview of in the from Dr. Assad. We also have an agreement with Williamson County Juvenile Court where we work with teens and preteens who receive a tobacco citation. So they get to come to our presentation. We work inside of the court system. The National Institute for Drug Abuse reported last month an alarming rate of these nicotine devices being used by youth, and even reported these numbers have doubled in the past 2 years. An overwhelming majority of them were reported to be using these devices with the flavoring. So again, those flavoring tactics, marketing, that's really getting them hooked, because that's what they're gearing towards. Some reported that their devices just have nicotine in them. Some reported marijuana. And some even stated they don't know what's in their devices, so they don't really even know what's going into their bodies. We have joined forces with Williamson County Health Council members and other community partners and our own clinical staff to train them on our juuling presentations so we can get this important information out to our community. Outside of schools, we have discussions with many parent organizations. We find this to be important because many parents don't have all the information. We debunk the myths that are heard, and we also help parents know what to look for, which you'll see some of those from Sergeant Pewitt here in a few minutes, and what to talk with their children about. We're always happy to come out to your organization and speak about this topic as well.
Hi, I am Brittany Laborde. I'm also from the Williamson County Health Department. Lindsay and I are health educators together. We partner often with the Williamson County Anti-Drug Coalition. A lot of our community events, we focus on juuling, substance use, stress management, suicide prevention. The coalition's mission is to implement effective strategies that prevent substance use among youth in Williamson County by building strong partnerships to help support a healthy, drug-free community. It's funded under a grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. In that same study that Lindsay was talking about a minute ago, the Tennessee Together survey, only 35% of Williamson County students reported that they talked with at least one parent about the dangers of using prescription drugs not prescribed to them. And so that's something that we want to try to encourage parents to talk to their children of all ages to start that discussion, because talking about it really does help deter kids from using. On the Anti-Drug Coalition Facebook page and in the community, we provide age-appropriate education to parents to talk to their kids about this topic. We kind of talked about some of the statistics. In 2018, there were 39 overdose deaths in Williamson County. 1,818 statewide overdose deaths. So this is a really important topic for us to be talking about. Williamson County Anti-Drug Coalition also has a grant for a regional overdose prevention specialist, or ROPES. His name is Trey Dees, and he goes around and provides naloxone training and provides 2 doses per person who attend the training. That he goes around to businesses, individuals, congregations, and lots of other places wherever people require him to come throughout 5 counties, including Williamson, Rutherford, Cannon, Trousdale, and Wilson counties. We typically meet, the Williamson County Anti-Drug Coalition typically meets every second Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month from 11 to 12. Tomorrow we're actually meeting here at the Franklin Police Department. Our scheduled speaker is Sarah Elmore, Regional Director for Mid-Cumberland Region with Tennessee Suicide Prevention. This organization works across the state to eliminate the stigma of suicide and educate communities about warning signs of suicide with the ultimate intention of reducing the suicide rates in Tennessee. If you're interested in partnering with the Anti-Drug Coalition or hosting a naloxone training, Kim Tyner is the director, and you can contact her.
All right, so I'm Brant Pewitt. I'm sergeant with the Williams County Sheriff's Office and the Crime Prevention Unit. I supervise the Franklin Special School District SROs, along with Franklin High and the Annex. There's 6 different sergeants. 5 of us are rovers, so I'm a rover. I go and fill in when we have somebody out. Just talking to you a bit about the vape stuff, like we've said already. These are different types of vapes, and there's more than this, and I've got some more examples. Most common, number 4 here, you'll see is a Juul. I'm going to stand up, makes it a little easier. These are the big mods. These are the ones that'll have the liquid, like a big liquid capsule that they'll refill. These are the smaller, just regular cigarette-style pens. This is a Juul. This is a Juul pod. That's what will contain the nicotine, and that's what they can hack. There's websites that show them how to hack it and add stuff, and that's, like they've already said, that's what's concerning when they're hacking these. They're modifying them. They're putting other contaminants in them different liquids, whether it be the vitamin E that's been suggested and other items. So this is, and it goes way beyond just devices like flash drives. This is actually basically a watch that's an e-cig. So I mean, these sell on Amazon for about $65, and that is a actual vape. You just pop it out of the watch band, and you've got your vape. It's got a container on the top side that's got the mechanism. This is a picture of somebody using a vape hoodie. So as you can see here, the string device is the vape. So they're pretty clever with all this stuff. There's a lot of different products. This is, I'm wanting to say the manufacturer sells this on Amazon. It's about $60, $70, and it's called Vapeware. So they've got a lot of different forms of it. Like we talked earlier, marketing to kids, this is one that's designed to look like Mentos, if you notice the packaging. That's a Fruity Pebbles blend. You got Fanta, basically like a version of Fanta. Sour Patch Kids. So a lot of this is marketed and geared towards children. This is type of cannabis concentrates, the shatter, wax, you've got any of this, dab. The wax is one of the things we're running into a good bit, along with the liquid THC. The liquid THC is the big concern right now because of the black market manufacturing. There was a news report from Business Insider into September that a NBC affiliate tested 15 of 15 tested positive for a fungus that, when warmed up, became a hydrogen cyanide. So that was 15 of them, and then there was another one that tested, like you said, with the 13 of the 15 tested for the vitamin E that they used to cut it and thicken it. And according to the research I found, which, like the doctor said, it's still early, it's saying that vitamin E into your lungs can cause the pneumonia. So this is a Kush pod, so they actually market, this is a THC pod, and this is what you'll find a lot of the black market stuff. This is what a lot of our concern is the THC pods, because we are finding them in our schools. We've found them in middle schools already this school year. We found them in high schools. We've gotten, we're very proactive. All the SROs are given kits. This is a marijuana test kit. We did a press release with Williams County Schools on it and did a video, as well as some local media. And what it is, it's got a swab in here. One package is a swab, and one package is the field test kit. You can run the swab through the mouthpiece or into the liquid, or break the jewel open if need to, and test it and run it. And if it changes colors, we know we're dealing with the THC product. So I don't have exact numbers, but we have discovered several THC positive test kits so far this year. Along with tobacco citations, we're very proactive. Anybody caught with a e-cigarette, juvenile, or tobacco, issued tobacco citation. If it tests positive for THC, that's an arrestable offense, and they'll be dealt with accordingly and sent to juvenile for that. The other issue, like she said, we have to also think outside the box of what else could be coming. So all the SROs are also issued 2 doses of Narcan. So we carried that as well, just for any type of overdoses. Forbid we have one, but if we do, we've got the tools to help address the situation on the spot.
Okay, who's scared to death now? A little bit. I wanted to just play off something that you talked about, and being a member of the Health Council, I know this is a concern. Students are issued a tobacco citation in the schools, which refers them where, and then how can we, I know the Health Council is concerned about stopping the sale of tobacco and vaping products to those under the age of 18. So talk a little bit about if your child gets a tobacco citation at school, what happens next?
So if they receive a tobacco citation, they go before the Williams County juvenile judge and will face punishment from the courts. It could be anything from fines, classroom, tobacco class, as well as still issuing the? Yeah, community service, and as well as some written documentation, doing a report on the hazards of tobacco for young use. If it's a issue of THC, it is a criminal offense that they will go for before the judge on.
So with the Health Council, that was one of our main focus areas was juuling and trying to contact those stores that have been cited for selling to minors, the non-compliant stores. And so we have a list of those stores, and we have made up a letter with the Anti-Drug Coalition and gotten people from the coalition and the Health Council to sign it, just concerned citizens, and also giving them information of what to do next, what steps for these businesses to do next, and kind of giving them a packet of information of how to be compliant and what to do, and just letting them know that we are concerned.
And before I ask Dr. Assad a question, I wanted to ask you all. So you mentioned about coming out and this there's a training available, just-in-time training available. And what size group do you need to have? And you're looking for people to be trained to be able to help train the trainer, right?
So we do offer this training because we're constantly getting flooded with requests to come and do our juuling presentation. So you can just be, a single person wanting to come. I'm happy to give you one of my cards following the wrap up of this. You can be a whole organization. It really doesn't matter. But we speak to groups as small as 20 kids to 300 kids, or an entire school population at once. So we do a little bit of everything.
Great. So, Dr. Assad, we saw that slide that said there had been 18 of the vaping-associated respiratory illness cases in the state, and you said you've personally reported 7. Were many of those teens? And what's your biggest concern as a health professional about this, what you've described as an epidemic?
So there have been 39 cases. Sorry if that was confusing, and I reported 7. I guess I've seen most of my cases make what I would call a full recovery. The problem is that it's still hard for me to know that there isn't going to be some residual loss of lung function or respiratory pulmonary limitations to these young adults. They've all the cases I've seen, save for one, have been between the ages of 19 and 25. And so these are young adults who, in theory, are at the peak of their pulmonary health. And so, as far as I can tell, they're okay. But is this going to have lingering effects in 20, 30, 40 years? Nobody knows. And nobody knows that for any vaping product of any kind. Even if they don't get this illness, there's still an ongoing body of research about whether this is the same in terms of long-term pulmonary health like smoking. And I think, given that uncertainty, we just have no idea.
Wow. Now, I know there's some questions. I'll start up here and then I'll come back that way. But I'm going to give you that microphone to ask the question, then I need them on mic to answer.
Okay, I was just concerned for adults trying to quit smoking, and if it was done correctly, would you still think that would be a proper way to stop smoking?
I get that question a lot, and I think if you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have said I would prefer you to smoke an electronic cigarette than to smoke a cigarette, and it is a well-established smoking cessation tool. I still feel that way. However, given the uncertainty of the current epidemic, I have a hard time in good faith telling somebody that it's okay. And so its intended purpose to get adults to quit smoking, it still may work that way and it still may help, but given the current problem, no device is safe.
I couldn't help but think when I saw those candy and cereal, vape, whatever it is, the liquid pods, that I thought of that scenario where we have told our children, don't take candy from strangers, so to speak, and we've sort of had that. We forget that, to me, this is like a predatory behavior on the part of the business to entice a child or children to gravitate to do that. I mean, I just think, where is it, obviously it's legal to have this business, but to me that's predatory behavior on the part of the businesses. What are we doing in a larger picture with that, with the vaping issue with children and young adults?
I guess, Sergeant, the first step is if they're caught in the school with something, that's the first step, right?
Yeah, I mean, if they're caught in the schools, we deal with it the best we can within the boundaries of our abilities. As for what's happening there, there's nothing we can do personally. I'd say it's a bigger problem socially. I'd say it's also a problem. Some of these companies that are being kind of mocked up and sold as a different product using the same type of fonts of that's something that they need to take from a business standpoint, whether there's a lawsuit for copyright infringement, any of that type of stuff. But there's not a lot we can do locally other than just watch for it in your community. Yeah. And it's been addressed. If you follow the news, the CEO of Juul company actually just stepped down a couple weeks ago, and the company has suspended all ads due to the pending issue that's going on and the fear that it could be resulting in juveniles using. So the company's trying to take a proactive approach from all the reading I've done over the last few weeks.
Some companies are already pulling flavors out of their stores. Brittany and I, whenever we're kind of out in the community, we might stop at a gas station, kind of evaluate what's going on. And we actually noticed that one gas station near here, the Juul only had menthol and traditional tobacco flavors available. So some of these companies are noticing what's happening. They're choosing to pull them themselves. Walmart, they did a huge announcement that they're going to be pulling all of their Juul products as well, and they're not going to continue selling them.
So community pressure can have a positive impact on this, hopefully, and so that's good to know.
I have a question related to consequence. So I know you said, a 15-year-old gets caught and they get a citation. What is the impact of that? Is that a permanent record thing? Is that affects their ability to get in college? My other thing is, I assume for middle schoolers or young high schoolers to have access, some of it may be an 18-year-old who's buying it and then reselling it to a younger classmate. What is the consequence of that, when you find that happening? I mean, I do think that, at that age, and it's almost like a dealing of an illegal thing in that case. Can you talk a little bit about that for me?
I'll let Sergeant Pewitt start, and then we'll see from there.
So the first part of the question, the consequences, no, juvenile records are going to be sealed. It shouldn't impede anything. It's not like a violent felony or anything like that. It's some, delinquent misdemeanor offense. As for if we find an adult that is contributing to delinquency of a minor, by all means, that's a citable misdemeanor offense, arrestable. And if we do find it, say we have a 18-year-old high schooler and we find that he's selling to underclassmen or even to middle school students, it would be addressed. And we try to do our due diligence every time we deal with one of these to find out, all right, what's your source? Where are you getting this from? Is it coming from another student? Is it coming from a family member? Are you stealing it from the store? That type of stuff. And it's, they're not always going to give us the answers, but when we do get them, we'll try to everything we can to track it down.
Brittany, how are y'all developing the list of non-compliant stores, and how are you working that? It's also a community pressure type thing, I would assume. So,
I don't have the actual website. I don't remember the source that we get it from, but it's public record. So we pull the public record report. Kim Tyner's the one that usually pulls that report. And so we pull that report, and they update it, I think, every 6 months or something like that. And so we just mail out a letter to those non-compliant stores.
What is the ability of a child to order these online? Because I heard a lot of stuff about online purchase. How do they regulate age? Can you buy oils and jeweling products online, or is it mostly the devices, or what's the deal with that?
Honestly, all the research I've done, just about anybody could get on and buy anything online. Like I said, most of these products you can find on Amazon, you can find on eBay. If you just Google vape shops, there will be, just numerous pages that come up, and all you got to do is click, like everyone that I researched, are you 21? Yep. Okay, I'm in. So, and then from there, we've got a lot of students in our area that have their own debit cards and everything else like that, so it's not that difficult when you really think about it. If you were to do the research and look, it's surprisingly easy for them to obtain these things.
And I just want to reiterate, so what we're talking about today is part of our community health improvement plan. So anyone is able to be a part of that. So if you're interested in attending, one of our health council meetings and being a part of this, I definitely encourage you to do so.
It's a great group made up of people from the healthcare professionals, but also citizens who are concerned about issues facing our community.
Thank you guys for being here. This was really informative. I have 2 questions, and I'll ask both, and then you can figure out how to answer. One is the follow-up of how many repeat offenders do you see after you've addressed the issue with a child? And then the second one is related to the addictive properties of these things, because nicotine is very addictive. And how long does it take for a child to become addicted? And are there things that help them withdraw from this once they get caught, I guess, and you want to stop them?
Yeah, once we find a student is using tobacco on school grounds or anything, our people, what we generally do is school or the SRO can issue the administration of the school, let me correct that, or the SRO can issue a tobacco citation, and parents are notified, and parents will have to go to court with the juvenile. As for repeat offenders, there are some. It's not as high as it used to be when the primary thing we were dealing with was the occasional cigarette or chewing tobacco. Chewing tobacco, when I first started SRO in 2007, was our biggest deal. So back then it was nothing to have constant repeated offenders, because they'd, throw a dip in, think they could get away with it all day. So with the e-cigs, yes, you have some repeat offenders, but not as much as we used to see with just chewing tobacco.
Maybe it's going to require a lot of flipping, but I was going to show the nicotine, that one, and this one too. So part of the scare about Juul as the new product is that it is a lot more concentrated. They found a way through their proprietary whatever to make the nicotine more concentrated. And so they call it a salt-based nicotine versus a free-based nicotine. And so they can squeeze more nicotine per volume in that way than with the other ones. There's a big range when you talk about the liquids in terms of the nicotine per ml, and you can see it's 0 to 36, which means it could be almost nothing to still a moderate amount, whereas a Juul is essentially like a pack of cigarettes. One pod is like a pack of cigarettes. And what makes them, I'll show this one more time, what makes them particularly dangerous, this is the blood nicotine level per time after puff, and this is measured in minutes. And so combustible cigarettes in this sort of mustard color is the gold standard, unfortunately. And so this is, you get the peak nicotine level within a few minutes, 5 minutes or so. And going backwards, if you look at the traditional e-liquids, obviously depends on the concentration. It's actually surprisingly more muted and not nearly the same peak. But Juul, through their technology, has found a way to mimic that of cigarettes almost completely. And so it gets into your blood very quickly. And so nicotine in general is one of the most addictive chemicals we know about. And so I don't know if I can answer how many puffs does it take or how many months or weeks of use does it take to become addicted, because I'm sure it depends on the person, but it doesn't take long. And particularly if you're getting such a huge dose of the medicine, of the drug, sorry, into your bloodstream, I'm sure Juul will prove to be one of the more addicting of the electronic cigarettes. Oh, but there was another good second half to that question, which I don't have the answer to because I'm not a pediatrician. But yes, I mean, if you're using this daily, you're going to get addicted to nicotine. And I don't want to be cold and say just quit, you'll be fine, because nicotine withdrawal is terrible. I don't know if other nicotine products like Nicorette gum or lozenges or the patch, for that matter, are approved for children, and I would have to ask a pediatrician. But that would be an idea if that was allowable, but it may not be.
I read an article recently from the Pew Center for Research that was talking about vaping, and that teens' lungs being more underdeveloped, basically they are addicted. If they become addicted to the nicotine, they may need to Juul twice in an hour, every 20 minutes. So they're getting out of class to go to the restroom or do something, to go to their locker, but they're going because they need to Juul or they need to vape. And that's just really scary. I appreciate the questions, and what we're going to do is, if you are interested, we're going to send out a follow-up, and this presentation will be posted on our website, and we'll send up a follow-up. And we're going to try to arrange with Lindsay and Brittany and others that if you want to participate in a more in-depth discussion and or the training, we'd be happy to put that together and set that up. I do want to bring it back to one more thing, though. You talked about the naloxone, and we talked about Narcan a little bit. And people are somewhat afraid to talk about how having that's readily available and having that available in your home, or if you're concerned in your workplace. Talk a little bit about how that needs to be available. And Chief, if you want to address that, but ladies, talk a little bit about getting that naloxone and Narcan out in the community.
So the main goal of this is to prevent deaths from overdose. So that's our goal. It's not to encourage use, of course, but I know that that's kind of a misconception. But Trey Dees is a trained regional overdose prevention specialist. He is specifically, I think there's 15 total across the state that people that are trained, and he is trained specifically for the 5 counties around this area. And he's gone to just do one-on-one presentations, meet somebody at a coffee shop and just train them. It's a presentation that takes about 20 minutes, and then you get a certificate, and then after that, you have Narcan on hand, naloxone. And also, if you have Narcan that is expired, he can also switch it out for you and give you replacement Narcan that is up to date. Yes, it is intranasal. Does that kind of answer your question?
And it's free. And it's free. You have people in your building.
Our Franklin police officers each carry 2 each, and it's not unusual for them to get a call. In fact, they had one last month where it took 7 to bring a guy around. We had a call recently where it was a juvenile. His father found him overdosed. He had Narcan in the house just in case. He administered it. It was not enough. He called the police. We got there. We gave him 2 more, and then EMS took him to the hospital. So it's not unusual now for parents here in the Franklin area to keep this in the home just in case.
Thank you. Let's thank our panel, and I know they'll be here for questions if you have more questions. And Mayor Moore, you have appointed a blue ribbon panel. Would you just tell us a little bit about that, what your goal there is with your blue ribbon panel that you've created?
Sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to say something about that. Chief Faulkner and I, for some time, have had concerns about suicide and mental health issues in our community, and we've had a lot of conversation about it. Most of these are related to drug use also, and the opioid crisis. And in conversation, we decided we would appoint a blue ribbon panel, whatever a blue ribbon is. Most of them are health experts. We have one PR specialist there, and basically we've had one meeting, and the idea is to come together with some ideas how we can better raise awareness in our community. One of the, we focused on 4 areas of health in our community: obesity, tobacco cessation, activity, and mental health. Everybody wants to talk about all of them except mental health. And so we're trying to figure out how we might be able to message our community. And of course, we have health department people from the healthcare council and so on. So look for that to be coming sometime in the near future.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. As we said, we have to talk about this in our community. And that's one of the reasons we're here today, is for you to have information. Tell somebody you were here today. This will be rebroadcast on our Facebook page and then on the City of Franklin's Franklin TV channel, that you can share that. We'll have this PowerPoint on our presentation. But more importantly, these ladies and Sergeant Pewitt and the chief, they'll be happy to talk to you or your organization more so that you have a better understanding of the issues facing our community. We have a lot of events coming up, but right now I want to remind you that early voting is going on in the Franklin City election. There are 4 at-large alderman seats available, and the mayor, although he's running unopposed, their early voting continues through October 17th, including this Saturday from 8 a.m. to noon. Tonight we have a candidates forum at 6 p.m. along with Williamson County Association of Realtors, Williamson Inc., Williamson Herald, and Franklin Homepage to learn more from the candidates. So that'll be at 6 p.m. at Franklin City Hall. And then the actual election day is October 22nd, Tuesday, October 22nd. We want to remind you that Breakfast with the Mayors will be November 5th, and that will be the kickoff date for our 2nd annual On the Table initiative. We really need hosts, and we need people to be open to participating both on November 5th, but throughout the week with various events in public and private locations. And then we'll wrap up that week of On the Table on November 9th with a new event at Columbia State Community College called Engage Franklin. And we're looking for organizations that have direct volunteer opportunities available in the community to participate in that day. And also we'll have opportunities for conversations and idea identification on that day. So we've got a lot going on. Check our website, franklintomorrow.org. And thanks for being here, and tell your friends and tell your neighbors about these issues in our community. Thanks.